Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Brick by Brick podcast. In this one, we have Sean AKA SportyKid joining us here today. And Sean, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, and during your introduction, also tell us what the green wall in OpTic means to you.
Ooh, okay. So I am Sean, aka SportyKid. I am from New Jersey, United States. Big fan of the green wall. I got into esports around 2015 watching the Halo X games, of which OpTic placed, I think, 4th in that tournament. At that time, I was more of a fan of EG and Snipe Down. However, since then, looking at what the Green Wall has done and what their goals are versus other esports organizations, I gotta say it's that familial aspect that feels so different from every other organization out there. I know it is the beaten answer at this point, but it really is so true. There's no organization out there that kind of makes the content and feels like home outside of maybe 100 Thieves is kind of getting there. That you look at every single person and they look at each other and they feel like a family.
Yeah, agreed. Someone put it really well. I was watching before we started this, actually, I was watching the latest episode of The Process, and someone in the comments mentioned basically like this is the only organization and only time that you would be able to see someone like Formal retire from Call of Duty, stay on OpTic as far as being in the OpTic brand and family, and also compete for somebody else and knock OpTic out, but still be in OpTic. Like only Hex would let something like that happen. But the way they worded it, if you guys haven't watched it, go watch the latest episode of The Process. The guy worded it really, really well. So moving on, you said you've been watching esports and got into it around 2015 with Halo X Games. I forgot that Halo was at the X Games. I've never been a big Halo guy. Like, I understand the culture of Halo and the origin of MLG and Halo and like all those days. I understand all that. I never really played Halo growing up. But Infinite, I'm definitely loving. And we will definitely talk more about Halo Infinite as this goes on. Besides that, do you have any other background that you want to share with gaming or Halo, or like any sort of background you want to open up about or anything?
Gaming wise, I mean, I grew up as a Nintendo kid, probably like a lot of other people. Didn't really know what most esports or anything else was, so I actually missed the heyday of Halo. I did not watch any, of the broadcast MLG days. I missed all of that. I actually wouldn't have even gotten into esports if that X Games wasn't on ESPN. So I was watching X Games at the time. All of a sudden, I see Halo 5 has a tournament going on. Immediately hooked by the personalities. The broadcast was phenomenal because that's, of course, an MLG production back then.
Mm-hmm. And really excited about Esports Engine working with Activision this year, too, with the CDO.
Oh, yeah. Especially getting the OG MLG name back under that umbrella.
Are they going to use it? I don't know. There's the whole Microsoft Activision thing. But I do agree. I think Ethan and I, the Avenger, we were talking about that a couple months ago about how it's just the perfect name. Major League Gaming, like any esport game can use it, but Activision kind of bought it, and then just kind of killed it off. I'm hoping that with the Microsoft Activision acquisition or whatever you want to call it, maybe we see the MLG name brought back.
I hope so.
It's in line with other traditional sports, Major League Baseball. Like,
it's got to be organic, I think, is what Activision showed. If you try to force it, it's not going to work. They made MLG TV. They tried to force everything over, and when good things are kind of forced, it that's, like you said, it kills it.
Yeah, and like the MLG TV thing, I don't think. I mean, from a business perspective, it made sense. But maybe they tried to rush it a little bit, or I think they could have executed it differently. But yeah, I don't know. I hope that we see it brought back. All I know is that during the rally event, knowing the esports engine did that and seeing the pictures, like the classic red and blue stages, like I have so much appreciation for those early Halo days, having never grown up playing Halo and having never really watched the old Halo tournaments. Like I've seen clips,
Having
I've seen
been
highlights.
I
Did you
went
go
to
there?
Rally. I went to Rally. And so that's where,
Ooh.
like you mentioned earlier, having watched Formal be under OpTic, compete under a different organization, I was there the moment he knocked out OpTic, and to hear all of the OpTic fans cheer Formal.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it.
Well, it's like that's what's crazy about it. It's like granted, OpTic has mostly been a Call of Duty organization. We've touched in other things, but at the end of the day, it's a Call of Duty organization first and foremost. And it's crazy that the fans were chanting Formal. They were chanting for an individual who they primarily know as a Call of Duty player. Even though he started in Halo, we just don't really. I feel like a lot of OpTic fans don't know that, or like they don't know how good he was. He was talking about it in that process episode. Like we know him as this Call of Duty star. So the fact that we cheered his name as an individual after knocking out a team under OpTic, like that's crazy.
And Halo is unique because he was competing under a different org, but at the same time, those who were fans of OpTic Halo for a while understand that Sentinels roster was OpTic Halo, and that was the dynasty. So they won a Worlds under OpTic. They won multiple championships. They're still loved as well. There's bad blood maybe between the players for a bit, but as far as the fan base goes, I mean, those OpTic fans still love TJ, Snakebite, like
TJ
all
and Snakebite. Like it's like if we
Frosty,
ever, like to me, no Counter-Strike player represents OpTic better than Mixwell. Like
or Tarek.
Or what was the other guy's name? I want to say it was like Will or something. I don't know. I didn't follow CS that much, but to me, I'm like Mixwell is OpTic's CS:GO guy.
Yeah.
In the same way, like I talked about it, I think in the last episode, when TP signed with Envy. Like I was kind of bummed out because like even though TP spent most of his career as a direct rival of OpTic with, side by side with Aches, like to me, he is a perfect representation of OpTic.
Yeah.
Like
everything he grew into.
Coaching, streaming, everything he did post COD competing, like, and then he signed with Envy. I was bummed. And then they merged and he was back with OpTic and I was hyped. Like he represents it so perfectly.
How about that merger? Did you see that coming before that happened?
I didn't. We talked about it a little bit at the end of last episode. I'm a big fan of the merger. I think that we're all a little scared because of what happened last time. Like we don't want that to happen again. That being said, I've always viewed Envy as kind of a sister organization. If you look at our Call of Duty background, in COD 4, Black Ops 1, MW3, games like, 10 years ago, Rambo, JCap, I believe Merc, have all competed under both organizations, just flip-flopping back and forth. Scump for 2 weeks.
Yep.
Like, we've almost shared players in that sense. And then I know Stro and Hex go way back. They helped build the entire scene together. So knowing that was the team that the merger was going to happen, that was the other partner getting involved, I was like, you know what? If I'm going to have anybody else get involved, like this is the way I want it done. And I trust everything to work out really well. I trust Stro to not encroach on Hex's control and the way that he runs things and vice versa. And so far we've seen that.
I think you've seen almost like the best of both worlds where the teams are all about the performance and everything else, but at the same time, it's not taking away from the content aspect.
It's like, you're getting the content from the OpTic side of it, but hey, we're just here to win and we don't care about anything else. Envy side of it.
And then the resources too.
The research, the OpTic Halo and OpTic COD guys kind of doing content together has been great. And I mentioned it too in the last week's episode. Like, if this merger never happened, but some of these creators or players were signed onto OpTic, we'd love them anyway.
Yeah.
It's like the moment you're brought into OpTic, we love you. Like, the only person I think some of us would have a hard time with is Aches. I think if Aches signs for OpTic, I think maybe some of us are like, eh. But also, like,
and that's the part that's kind of a little lost on me, because Call of Duty, obviously, since I got into Halo in 2015, Call of Duty was a couple years after that, and so I got into Call of Duty I watched Black Ops 3 Worlds was the first that I watched, and watching from that moment, of course, I was already a fan of OpTic, and then what got me into OpTic as a big time fan was their signing of that CLG, then announced OpTic roster with the TJ announcement at the end of, that was Vision.
You know, that would have been the end of one of the Vision episodes.
Yeah, that drop was still one of the most, in my opinion, iconic drops of all time.
Yeah, which that's what's interesting too. That's one of the reasons I love doing this show, is like everyone has a different background with getting to know OpTic and becoming a fan. Last week, Christian, he got introduced in 2017, like right at the beginning of this big downfall. Jack Incisive, he got introduced during the Huntsman. And then I've talked to people that have been watching since 2012 as well. So it's really cool. That being said, now that we've established a lot of that, who is your favorite current member of OpTic and your favorite all-time member of OpTic? This one I feel like is going to be interesting, because I think you're the first Halo fan that I've had for a full-length episode. I've had one other guy that started as a Halo fan, but it was at the Champs Live event.
I have to say, okay, so excluding Hex.
Of course, yes. The rules still stand. Season 2, Hex does not count.
Yeah. That's a good question. So favorite current member is probably Formal. 2021, 2022 Formal is goated as far as comedy.
Yes.
Absolute savage in every sense of the word. All-time member though. The easy answer would be Scump, but I don't want to go there.
You don't want to go with the easy one?
I don't want to go with the easy one. I need someone a little more
good. That's how I am. I'm like, I have to try to pick something more unique.
I got it. I gotta go with Hitch.
Okay.
Everything that Hitch has done with OpTic, outside of OpTic, and everything else is like, honestly, so inspiring. I wish that I took more of an opportunity to go outside of my shell at Raleigh and actually have a full conversation with him. The most I can muster up was like an introduction. I got his signature on an old EG shirt. I got about 40 signatures from popular people there.
Nice.
But he's got that like go with the flow, but bust your ass mentality that I absolutely love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. I think we've maybe heard Hitch like once or twice. It's that's not we hear Scump a lot. I think I've heard Maniac once. Mine are always going to be Big Timer Karma for current and D Treats for all time. Trying to get D Treats on the podcast. If you're listening, D Treats, you know where to find me.
Hit 'em up. Great podcast.
We are trying to work it out. That'll be my first, probably the first like big guest I have, like very established. If it happens, that'll be awesome.
Don't you have a Hex for
Hex? Yeah, you know what? He actually will probably be first, because that's just next month. That's just in a few weeks.
I was gonna say because the OpTic Major's coming up.
Yes, I still need to book my flight and hotel. If anybody's listening to this, I don't know when this episode's going up. It might be after the major, so maybe this is pointless. But if it goes up before the major and you need someone to share a room with, I'm trying to save some money. So hit me up. But yeah, the Hex thing, 3 to 5 minutes of his time. I stole that straight out of the Gary V playbook. Gary Vaynerchuk posted something somewhere, and the guy basically said, hey, I'd love to get like 5 to 10 minutes of your time for a YouTube interview. And Gary reposted it and was like, the reason I said yes is because he only asked for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Instead of an hour. And if you're a guy like Gary, you don't got that much time to spare. But 5 minutes, 10 minutes, sure. And it worked. It worked. We hit up Hex. Someone actually called it too. When I tweeted at him, I was like, hey, yo, can I get like 3 to 5 minutes at the major? Someone replied to me and was like, Gary V coaching out here. I was like, he knows.
I mean, it is crazy because he gives that to everyone really anyway. You know what I mean? And like, and having it pre-established where you could prep for it, knowing that you're going to get it, it makes a world of difference. Yeah.
So I've met him a few times. Most recently at the Stockton meet and greet for Pine Park. Spent the 3-hour drive there. Well, like 3.5, almost 4-hour drive there. Basically going over what things I wanted to mention in regards to the podcast. And the number one thing I premeditated on, I couldn't muster, I completely forgot. And that was basically like, what do I have to do to get this podcast under the OpTic banner? Because that's the ultimate goal. So this time, if I butcher that, then this podcast doesn't deserve to be under the OpTic banner. But if anyone is listening to this, if it does go up before the major, please let me know if there's anything you guys want to. Whoa, my phone, Siri picked up on me. If there's anything you guys want me to ask Hex, hit me up on Twitter. This all being said, let's move forward. If you could join OpTic or be involved in OpTic in any way, shape, or form, be it a streamer, a professional player, a behind-the-scenes guy like Hitch, Matt, Roger, what would you want to do for OpTic? And why would you want to do it?
Oh, I think this is an easy answer just because I was actually talking to some friends about this recently, not necessarily under OpTic, but I feel like if I did anything in terms of esports, it would probably be coaching. The way that I could break down Halo, it's not necessarily that I can execute at that level, and that's the biggest difference. But when I notice like plays, the way they're developing and everything else, and I'm like, no, they should have done this, and like
you just have
that's
the brain.
exactly. Yes. I feel like I would be excellent on a coaching staff. I
don't know why. I felt like that's where you were going to go with it.
Yeah, I've always been the mental aspect of like sports and stuff like that, and understanding that if you can get in that groove, that rhythm, you could pretty much just do anything. And the problem is I don't have enough time to put the practice in to actually execute at that level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But outside of that is my ability to look at gameplay, break it down, not only break it down in like the traditional sense, but just see what other people don't, I guess. There was a moment where I was watching this past weekend with Anaheim, and I was like, FaZe should have thrown up the oddball from batteries up into window there, and they cost them the game. They didn't do that. They tilted. They got reverse swept, or not reverse swept exactly, but like they went and lost to Sentinels. It just, watching the mental aspect is where I'm very good at kind of grounding people, and kind of getting them back in their groove, helping them succeed.
Here's a question to piggyback off of that. What is your favorite respawn? I suppose everything in Halo is respawn, but just, I guess in esports in general, what is your favorite game mode / respawn game mode?
Okay, so that in terms of Halo specifically,
it may change between games.
I was going to say,
every game has a series of different modes.
It's very different depending on which iteration of Halo you're talking about. Currently, I love the game changes that they made for Oddball, and I really do wish that they'll make the same changes, since it is a live service game, down the road for Strongholds. I think that round-based mentality where it's not short rounds
I
allows
can't stand strongholds.
great composure. But here's the thing: imagine Strongholds in the same aspect of Oddball, where it's first to 100 and 3-round base.
Yeah.
I think it's incredible
I
because you
think
can
that would
adjust
be a
to the way that
very
you're.
healthy change.
I mean,
Now, interestingly, being like a COD guy, like I look at everything through that lens. In Stronghold is domination, obviously.
mhm.
But I think the reason Stronghold works and domination doesn't is because of how quickly you can cap objectives. Like, I
So
think that might be one of the single factors, because like domination gets really stale because of two things. One, it's really difficult to neutral or cap an objective to change the tide of the game. And two, because of that, you get these spawn trapping scenarios where the game just gets really flat and the team with the two objectives can spawn trap. In Halo,
one
you
key
win
factor.
one series of kills and you can go cap the second or even third flag like that and get some points on the board.
So one key factor that you're missing, though, is with Halo, it works also because there's rotating objectives, in the sense of there's your main objective, the Strongholds, but you also have these power weapons.
You also have power
that
weapons,
spawn into
yeah.
the map, and the abilities or power-ups,
power-ups.
so to speak, of camo, overshield, and stuff like that. That if you're too heavily on like the stronghold side of the map, you're giving up these power weapons, which allow that other team to get back into the fight, or you're trying to balance the two. Now, great teams can do both, but it's such a rare ability to be able to do all that.
Yeah.
And that is honestly where great coaches differentiate teams like Towie does for FaZe.
Yeah. That's something where in Halo 5, part of me was upset because they gave you the timers above the power weapons and stuff. Whereas in old Halo, like that was all on the players and coaches keeping the mental side of old Halo 1, 2, 3. I almost can't fathom the amount of power-ups and power weapons that the players and coaches had to constantly keep track of. Just mental notes, just looking at the clock. Or, sometimes coaches would have
take physical stuff.
Sometimes coaches would, if they were on stage, they'd have stopwatches and notes and stuff. But like, I don't think that Halo's necessarily easier now. But I do remember when I started playing a lot of ranked Halo 5 being upset that they're just giving that information to you on the screen.
Any game that I play, free information is my biggest tilt as well. So I fully hear you there. And the fact that they also like went as far as to do it with the power-ups this time too is a little bit irksome to me.
I'm like, maybe we're at a point now where like it doesn't matter. Maybe the competition has evolved in such a way that like it's pretty standard. But the more critical thinking that you have to do in a split second, the better the esport, the more competitive it is, the more people stand out, like the truly great people stand out. See, what about Call of Duty? What's your favorite game mode for COD?
Oh, okay.
And I know
so
you probably haven't watched
differentiates
nearly as much COD as you have Halo, but
any jetpack game, S&Ds. Jetpack S&Ds is so fun to watch.
Everyone says Uplink, and I can't disagree. Uplink is...
Uplink is definitely the most high adrenaline. I'll give you that. But like, again, for me, it's the mental aspect of the game. And so like
analytical strategist.
Yep. And so to see it with such a high pace gameplay is such a unique, I think the word is juxtaposition, where you have this slow game mode with a fast game, slow game type with this fast game play. And you get the best of both worlds, where everything could slow down in a moment's notice. And then all of a sudden everything breaks to chaos and people are going around every corner, up in the air, the whole bit. But between all the CODs, I would probably say, and this has to do with also like my love for Halo, is King of the Hill or Hardpoint.
Okay.
is going to be always kind of my favorite, like just staple game mode
See,
across games.
for me, it's always capture the flag. And reason being, I feel like it's a very mental game. Like you have
Hmm.
to know the fastest possible flag route. You have to know spawns. You have to keep track of respawn timers because they're a little bit more elevated. Hard points, what, like 2 seconds? I think CTF is 5, or at least it used to be. Keeping track of stuff like that. And then I really, really miss stopwatch CTF. I think that was a phenomenal overtime version of Capture the Flag.
I'm not familiar.
So it was in Black Ops 2, and it might have been in Ghosts for Blitz. But basically, if the game ended and it was a tie and you had to go to overtime, you would do 2 rounds. And basically, if you captured, if I'm OpTic and I capture the flag in 13 seconds, the round is 5 minutes. But by capturing it in 13 seconds, once we switch sides, the other team has 13 seconds.
They
basically have to capture the flag faster than we did. But it was really interesting because sometimes enough time would elapse that players would all of a sudden start trying to extend the time instead of shorten it to give themselves a better chance on the next round. They'd go, oh, crap.
They did that in World War II?
They might have. I did not watch much World War II.
I feel like there's only one year that I've watched that they've had that. Because I remember that kind of.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think it's such a good CTF overtime. Hardpoint, I think, is also really good. I cannot stand Control. I think Control leads to some of the highest adrenaline moments, but they happen so rarely that it's not worth it.
Control also, I feel like, gets shot in the foot with like these the rules that they have.
Yeah.
So they made the correct change last year of switching it to, I think it was objective points instead of kills. And then just arbitrarily they switch it back in Vanguard to the kills. And decisions like that, I feel like, don't help you, like, the interest.
I think that's one of Call of Duty's biggest pain points is different developers, and year to year everything can just change. Do we have snipers? Do we not have snipers? Like, that's been one of the biggest ones over the last couple of years. Now, knowing that you said search and destroy for the reason you did, what's your take on like specialists and kind of the hero shooter type things that we tried doing in the jetpacking CODs and Black Ops 4?
It's doable, but it has to be balanced correctly. You could look at games like Apex, for example. They have the abilities in these shooters.
Yeah.
But if the abilities are unbalanced, now all of a sudden that in itself is causing a problem. So I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with specialists. And I think, in fact, it does help with viewership or like the players to make those hero plays. But it can't be gimmicky, which I feel like sometimes it feels a little too gimmicky.
Mm-hmm.
I love the specialists that were in Infinite Warfare. I know Infinite Warfare gets a lot of hate.
I'm a big fan. I enjoyed Infinite Warfare a lot.
Yeah. I think as a spectator,
I think, hot take, I think it was the best jetpack COD.
I'm biased. That was the only one I watched the full year.
So it was the only one I watched.
Me.
I didn't play Black Ops 3 very much, so I'm also a little bit biased. In Advanced Warfare, I think Advanced Warfare was really good. Just 6 months into it, I got bored. Black Ops 3, I didn't play that much. Infinite Warfare, I actually played a ton. I also think that it was my best jetpack COD, so maybe I'm biased for that too. So moving on, we've definitely talked about a lot just there, right there. Do you have a top 3 favorite moments in OpTic history?
Ooh.
And it could be from anything, of course. It could be, good, bad, ugly, whatever.
The number one has got to be, like I already mentioned, was the lethal drop at the end of Vision.
Okay.
That exact moment, I can recall like what class I was in, watching that video with my headset, regardless of the class going on, waiting for that video to drop. That was iconic. being a Halo fan, knowing they were getting the roster, and then kind of watch it. Not actually know. I can't recall if I knew they were getting the roster or not, but kind of awaiting that announcement and then seeing how it dropped was like bone chilling.
Yeah.
And then other moments, easy was also COD Champs.
Of course.
Having the hype, I was already invested that year. Like I said, that was the first year where I actually watched the entire year of Call of Duty Champs. And from the first moment where I watched was the polar opposite, the heartbreak of Black Ops 3, to then watch that same roster fight through it, make it a champs, win champs was like, I know they weren't the underdogs by a long shot, but like from my snippet of perspective, felt like the most
like,
underdog story.
It's this weird dynamic of like, you can't tell me that they were not the best team in the Jetpack era. They won more championships than anybody, but only one of them was a world championship.
Yep.
And it's like,
and that's
I
the one that
get
matters.
that, it's the one that matters, and the team that wins that one is the best one in the game in any sport. I definitely have parts of me that disagree with that, because I'm like, you just showed up at the right time. Like, OpTic showed up consistently almost every time except for that one.
And that year they did both.
Yeah.
They won the first one, right? Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
They fell off a little bit. They won, I can't remember which, in the middle of the season.
They won a lot.
London. Then they kind of fell off a little bit again, won season 2, and then right into champs. And it felt like the perfect.
They hit their pacing at the right time, finally.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, too, and I was thinking about this watching the process with the most recent process with Formal, right? Something that OpTic has done forever for like for the 10 years I've been watching OpTic, 12 years I've been watching, they seem, at least in Call of Duty, to always be one of the earliest and fastest teams to adapt. They traditionally do very well in the first couple of tournaments from release date until around February. And then it seems every team catches up to them and then surpasses them a little bit during the middle of the season. Traditional middle of the season. COD League's a little different now. And what's interesting about it is the Halo guys did the exact same thing. Like, they were talking about it in the process, how like they felt like they were one of the first teams to really learn new metas and stuff. They adapted really quickly, and then everyone kind of caught up. Like, what is it about being in green?
See, funny enough, I don't look at it the same way. Being like, I guess a Halo fan in the sense is I look at E United as that squad this year.
Yeah.
I think E United is I don't want to say overperforming because that's not fair. It's yet to be seen how they'll do. But I feel like the Ryan Noobs, the Sparties, they tend to excel early on in games, and then other people catch up. And I hope that's not true with the squad because I love the personalities. But I don't think OpTic's going to have the same problem. I think that squad is going to get better and better as they get the LAN experience, because that team has the veteran caliber in Lunchbox and Ola. They have the duo in Trippy and Lucid. It's weird to say Lucid because it's still such a new name change to me.
What was his name prior?
It's weird because it's like now I can't think of the other one.
So
but
Lucid,
he only changed within the last 2 years at most.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely am a big fan of that guy.
Oh, legit. No, unlegit. He was legit, I think. But the problem is there's a GOAT of like OG Halo that I believe had the name legit, and so so that squad is just, I think, going to get better and better as they go because of that veteranship.
So on that, which I mostly agree with. I mean, so the only person on the squad that I'm pretty unfamiliar with is APG. And I know there's a lot of talk, a lot of people saying basically replace him with Formal. And to be fair, Formal has been playing very, very well in the bits that we have seen him. Like, but I don't know enough about Halo and its gameplay to like point that out on a deep level. Like with COD,
Mhm.
I can look at, where people would say drop Karma, he's underperforming. I could look at that and see all the work Karma is doing. That's basically the dirty work of the game. Yeah,
Yep.
stat line doesn't show it, but he is doing everything to allow those other three guys to have the numbers they do. I don't know enough about Halo to look at it that way.
I think APG's own weakest point is I think he tends to tilt. Like if he's having a bad game, it just
Kind
gets
of loses
worse.
composure a little bit.
Loses composure a little bit. But like he is that Karma player where like you'd got to do the dirty work, and sometimes he'll pop off. So like in Slayers, he's consistently performing, and Slayers is such a huge game mode in Halo. It's your just
Yeah.
game 2 and game 5. And it is best of 5 series right now in Halo. So of course that's so
I would
important.
like to see Halo go to a best of 7.
They do for the LAN grand finals right now.
Do that? Okay.
So the C9 OpTic series at the end of night on Sunday was a best of 7, which C9 won 4-2. Which the only reason I say thank God is because that would have gone to a really late night.
Yeah, it was already going pretty late.
And I was doing stats for that tournament, so I kind of had to pay attention. But I don't know. It's right now the only one that kind of is underperforming is the one that I expected is Ola. Ola kind of I think starts a little bit slow on games.
Yeah.
But that's where that veteranship, where like I say, is like he's going to only get better and better. When you look at year 2, year 3 of Halo 5, Ola, like the wizard showed. The wizard showed up. And that's what I'm excited for.
I think that he's one of the most mental players in Halo history, and I think at the early stages of games, yes, it's mental, but there's a lot of talent carrying people. There's a lot of who's just hitting flicks, right? Who has the god tier aim that's just winning every gunfight. Like, where's the talent showing?
And that's your C9 right now.
Yeah. And I know, I don't follow Halo a ton, but I know there's a lot of talk of like Renegade and Lucid being the top 2 players in this game. And they were mentioning, Stellar maybe as well, like not talked about as much, but like maybe he is actually the best player in this Halo right now. But that's something I think, long term, like you're saying, Ola, he's a very mental player. And the more he learns a game in and out, I think the reason he does poorly at the beginning or not as well at the beginning is he's almost overthinking it. But that's super beneficial the longer the game goes on.
Yep.
Like, we're going to see stuff 3 months from now, and Ola's going to be like, yeah, I thought about that in January. Like,
and I've been working on it.
Yeah. Like, that's already a nail in the coffin for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I am excited to see. I've been watching more OpTic Halo than OpTic Texas. Vanguard just
isn't. Yeah, and I think what pains me the most about Vanguard is the fact that even like it feels like even the developers kind of gave up on it, where they're talking about the next game already, and it's like it doesn't sit well with me.
So here's. We'll move forward with this. We'll get into, Activision and Call of Duty. Here's what throws me off. Couple of things. Okay, let's start with supposedly when Cold War came out, if you look at the rotation of the games that come out or what developer is doing that year, that should have been a Sledgehammer game. And I remember seeing something that basically said Activision came in, saw the game, and said, nope, y'all are waiting, Treyarch, get your game out. And so we got Cold War, which was like decent, but definitely wasn't polished. We gave Sledgehammer an additional year to develop their game. They gave us Vanguard. It still sucks. And like, why did Treyarch make the announcement for ranked play on a Sledgehammer game?
That's what, yeah. There's a bunch of stuff that doesn't sit well, and that's part of where I think that
like we've literally set up at the end of Modern Warfare going into Cold War. or even mid Modern Warfare when they were deciding which game was going to come out the following year. From that decision onward, we set up for 3 years of disappointment, because that means you rushed Treyarch's game, you delayed Sledgehammer's game, and it still released poorly, so poorly that you're already talking about Infinity Ward's next game way too early. Like, you've set yourself up for 2 to 3 years of bad.
And you have the potential of you overhype Infinity Ward's game, and if that doesn't meet
Infinity Ward's
expectations,
game is
then you're
supposed
going
to
to have a
come
lot of
save
people
the day
unhappy.
from Vanguard, and if it does just as bad, or if it's not good enough,
Yep, that's what I worry about. Not good enough.
like maybe it's better than Vanguard, but maybe it still sucks. It's Call of Duty I've been playing since Modern Warfare 2. Picked that game up in early 2010. Maybe it was late 2009. And it has been the same thing for the last like 5-6 years. Basically, I think Ghost was the first game that kicked it off.
The one thing I think going in your favor, though, is that acquisition of Microsoft.
Yeah.
So they know esports. Like, not maybe as well as Valve, but next to Valve, they know esports. Their games have been transitioning in that direction already. You look at Halo, where maybe they did it over a little too much, where it was too esports ready and not enough for the casual player. But what that means is that they'll look at the situation that Activision has been going through with Call of Duty, and I don't think it'll be right away. It might be that next cycle, but I think things will be more esports ready, which is, I think, such a huge factor for Call of Duty.
I think it's a really big factor now. I think that esports ready is not necessarily carrying Call of Duty, because Warzone is there kind of doing that. But yeah, I think Microsoft's done a great job with all the studios that they've acquired over the last few years. They've taken all of them in good directions. The Game Pass thing is huge, just for getting the game in people's hands.
Yep.
On top of that, though, I talked about this at the end of last week's episode. My ultimate dream would be Microsoft to step in and basically force the 3 studios to work together, create a new engine from the ground up so that all games feel the same. You don't have any of this, oh, I'm not going to play Warzone because it feels too different from Cold War that we experienced last year. New engine, all the games feel the same. You let one studio handle pubs, you let another studio handle competitive, and you let another studio handle Warzone. For me, that'd be IW, pubs, Treyarch, comp, Raven, Warzone.
That's what I was going to say. My follow-up question is, what would you have on which?
I think IW does a pretty poor job on esports, but their pubs are incredibly fun to play. They're broken. They don't make any sense, but like, it's that Call of Duty chaotic fun that all of us fell in love with starting at COD 4. Treyarch from Black Ops 1 onward has done a really good job approaching the game from an esports side of things. And they also can do zombies. I just don't care enough about zombies to. But they've approached the game really well there. But their pubs, to me, have almost always been lackluster. Black Ops 1, didn't love it. Black Ops 2, really enjoyed it, but definitely played more ranked or league play than anything. Black Ops 3 didn't really play that much. Cold War, loved everything. Oddly enough, like even with Cold War, I loved everything about that game on paper. The movement felt amazing. The time to kill was really good. Like everything about the game was satisfying. Nothing about it brought me back to keep playing.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know how to explain that. I don't know how I can love your game and not play it. And then Raven, I think their biggest fall with Warzone right now is they have too much pressure from the other studios and from Activision to make the game a certain way. Like Vanguard just came out. All the Vanguard guns have to be broken so people actually use them. It's like, no, let Raven just balance it how they feel is right. During the first year of Warzone with just Modern Warfare, they did a phenomenal job. Things didn't get bad until they had to implement Cold War stuff.
Yep, absolutely. So you take away some of that creative freedom in it.
Yeah.
You see how it impacts the game.
I told my coworkers 2 months before Vanguard came out, I said, watch, when Vanguard comes out, the entire meta will change. All the Vanguard guns will be OP. because they need people to use these guns. And that's what we've seen. And on top of that, we've seen apology statements saying, sorry, our game sucks. Which to me is shocking, for one. I would not expect Activision to ever apologize for anything.
So let me pose you a question then.
Hit it.
What would you like to see Call of Duty or Activision implement something similar that 343 Microsoft did with Halo, of having ex-pro players have a, quote, pro team, is what they called it, and actually influence the way that the game is developed for an esports ready side of things?
Yes, if they actually listen. Because there have been times in COD history where they have gotten pro players to come out and give them insight. And I don't remember where I saw it, but it was a couple of players that got that opportunity to come say, hey, you know, we need this for competitive. We need this. The game needs to be able to do this. And then the game came out and the pro players were like, did you guys just throw our suggestions in a shredder?
Not that. I'm talking on the development side of things. They're actually those, like, they're Activision employees. You know, they therefore cannot compete in said game. So like Miquin is a good example for Halo. He, after the game came out, stepped down from the pro team. He has to wait a full calendar year from the date of his resignation in order to compete in Halo Infinite.
I'm not opposed to that.
But at the same time, is he was part of that team of 5 or 6 individuals that helped with the development team in order to try to balance things from that competitive aspect that, let's be honest, some developers can't play at that level. There are things that they cannot think of.
See, because that's...
And I think Call of Duty needs that, because there's a lot of aspects of the game that aren't thought about because like the developers can't compete at that level.
Well, I think that's what they did in the past with Call of Duty. They just didn't have the contracts. They weren't actually employees, but they basically flew the pros out to say, hey, you know, what do we need? You know, what's not balanced? Like, what needs to fix? What needs to change in the game mode rules, stuff like that. And the pros, all their input basically meant nothing. None of the changes were implemented. Now, the one time that I know for sure that the changes were implemented was Black Ops 2. And I think World War II as well. World War II a little closer to what you're saying, though, because Rambo was actually a Sledgehammer employee. He helped develop that ranked system.
See, the ranked was probably the only redeeming factor of that. So that goes to say, like, how much can come from listening. Because let's be honest,
Rambo is one of the smartest players to ever play Call of Duty. Like, he doesn't necessarily have the top gun skill, but he is arguably the smartest brain to have touched Call of Duty. There's probably only 3 or 4 other names that can be in that conversation with his. And they listened. They did a really good job. World War II did have a really good ranked mode. Mm-hmm. I think Aches would be another player that would do a phenomenal job with that. As much as I hate the guy, like, he knows his stuff. Knows his stuff really well. And then Clayster, I think, too. Clayster's big thing is making sure that the game transitions well from casual to competitive. He talks about it all the time on Twitter. Like, we need to have the game, we need to ban the least amount of stuff possible so that your casuals aren't getting this completely other game when they hop into league play. You know, right now you hop into league play and all of a sudden 70% of the game is unusable.
So that's a unique difference then between Call of Duty and Halo as well. I think Halo's
vanilla
strong
Halo
too,
and
so
ranked
different.
Halo, very similar, I feel like. I feel like transitioning from casual to ranked, like, your spawn weapons change and your rules change a little bit. And, like, of course the game is played at a higher level, so the gameplay changes because of that. But the actual raw gameplay is virtually no different. I guess weapon spawns.
And that's the thing. So, like, the biggest factors, like you mentioned, though, is your starting weapons, because everyone starts on that same even playing field. Your power weapons on that, as well as kind of the way, like, so look at Halo Infinite, for example, right? Your casual gameplay goes to, I think, 3 caps for CTF, 200 for Stronghold.
Yes, I don't.
And the only thing that's the same is Oddball.
Yeah, I think Oddball's the same, but Stronghold, yeah, you're right on the money.
So like, and in my opinion, Halo Infinite is probably the closest between the two, because at least all of the sandbox can be used technically competitively, and people are learning that more and more. The problem was in the past is uh, Halo always kind of forced a quote casual sandbox of starting you with an AR and that guns that weren't really useful, and so it forced you to pick up these sandbox weapons. And yet, competitive was always done with a BR, which completely like made every other piece of the sandbox mute outside of the power weapons. So you're playing two completely different games. But I think that worked in Halo's favor, where it had these almost two unique games, and it didn't help in the community aspect of things, because now you almost have these two very different communities seeking things from the game. However, you got such a larger community from it. You had people that love the casual, love the Forge, you know, the custom games and stuff like that. And then now you have this huge esports following and everything else too, which is diminished drastically in the grand scheme of things compared to the rest of the community. Whereas Call of Duty, like you're saying, I think you really need that continuity between casual to competitive. And it's such a different thing that I've experienced in the last few years really watching.
Yeah. And I think part of that could be because of how early Halo was to be an esport and to make that change. Maybe that's why it worked out in their favor, that they were able to have two coexisting fan bases basically playing the same yet different games. Whereas Call of Duty, we went through, you had Call of Duty 2, 3, 4, World at War, Modern Warfare 2, and then Black Ops 1 was the first Call of Duty where there was like actually a LAN league. It's like we went through, it was our sixth game of having multiplayer that we started to get competitive. And then in Modern Warfare 3, there was no LAN. So it's like we got 1 year where Treyarch listened. They said, okay, maybe this thing has potential. And the following year with Modern Warfare 3, they literally could not do LAN. All the tournaments were online. Then we got Black Ops 2, which was really good. Like, but still, that was year 6, good. Year 7 didn't exist. Year 8, you know, actually kicked things off really well.
Now, do you think a big influence on that was that they really, and I think Hex has been saying this as well, is like they don't really only started as like a campaign style game, and the multiplayer was almost like an afterthought.
Yeah,
think of
the multiplayer
Fortnite,
was an
where
afterthought.
They came out and saved the world.
The multiplayer was an afterthought until Call of Duty 4. If you look at any interviews or anybody talking about Modern Warfare, Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare's development, it was the first year that they took a multiplayer first approach and really hammered that out. And they completely revolutionized almost FPSs as a whole, but very much so the way that Call of Duty was done. They invented the creative class system. They came out with kill streaks, perks, attachments on your weapons. Like all of that happened in 1 year. And it was the first year that they had a multiplayer first approach.
And it changed everything.
Completely changed everything. I think now we've gotten to the point where the game has gotten so complex on certain levels, right? We have how many attachments how many things can you have in a creative class in Vanguard? Like, it's like 200 or something. It's ridiculous. Like every gun has like 50 plus attachments. There's like 30 different reticles you can put on an AR. And like,
I think it's a common mistake of developers in general. They overcomplicate everything. I know that people want customization and stuff like that, but if you make it complicated to the point where you kind of have to think about, like, it should be a thoughtless process still.
Yeah. I think, which is weird because like being, you know, similar to you in the sense of like I approach things from a more strategical, analytical approach. I like the idea of having overly complex classes. What I don't like is why do I have like 5 barrels that do the exact same thing? Like sure, maybe they do them all slightly better or worse. Like, but the change is so minuscule. It's like, just give me 2 barrel options. Like, give me a short and a long barrel. Like, give me a fast mag or a big mag. Like, we've gotten to this point where it's so complex, and I think it's hurting us. Because then when you go transition from the casual into that pro scene, 90% of that stuff is banned anyways.
Yep.
So I don't know. On that note, though, you mentioned Fortnite, which is a battle royale, which will perfectly segue into the perfect person to have this conversation with, which is, I think if Halo made a battle royale, it would be the best battle royale in the entire genre, which I currently think Apex does the best job of. And when I say best battle royale, I mean specifically the most competitive, limited, if any, RNG, like a true battle royale esport. I think Halo has the best shot.
They do. And not only that, like, think about it thematically. People have said this. Imagine Spartans or ODSTs literally dropping in. Like, it's part of the series where they have orbital drop shock troopers drop into an arena and fight. I'm not sure why 343 is hesitant on it. I think that they think it might be a bubble. I don't know if they think it maybe is like a burst and then they put a lot of resources into something that might flop. But I do hope that they work towards it. I think that attrition, as much as I did hate the game mode, I don't think it worked with the sandbox that they were playing with. What was it? They came out with a limited time mode in Infinite. It was called Attrition. And think of Attrition kind of like Control, but just that lives aspect. So there's the pool of lives. It was 8 lives each team. And then after those lives, you are basically a one-off life. Now, when you dropped, it dropped a sphere that you could revive your teammate's sphere around the map, make some clutch moments, stuff like that. But, I mean, they did have it with a AR and sidekick. So I don't think it worked too well.
But still, it had like small battle royale elements to it.
Yep. And I think that's them maybe early play testing certain things without actually putting an investment in development of it yet. But I could see it down the line. Now keep in mind, Halo Infinite is their first goal of being a 10-year project running under the same
live
engine.
Service game.
And
which is the current development meta, which I'm mostly fine with. I talked about it briefly at the end of the last episode. The one thing I don't like about it is that because we don't have these individual games now, something I can do in Call of Duty at any time is go play Call of Duty Ghosts or IW.
Yeah. With
a live service game, I can never go play Season 1 Fortnite again. I think it's only downfall.
If you really want to take a side detour here, you could take the Jagex approach with RuneScape and have such an outcry for how the direction the game went at a certain point that they split off, made a separate development team, and made old school RuneScape.
Yeah.
But I don't see that happening too often.
No. But like that is literally my only concern when it comes to live service games. Now, what they could do is, I mean, it would maybe, you wouldn't be able to change the engine in the gameplay much between seasons, essentially, but you could run basically limited time modes.
Yes.
Like, I think there is a way that you can kind of solve this problem.
Fortnite, I think, shows exactly what you're saying. They've done their Season 1 with the original map, Season 2, which transitioned to a whole new map, and the Season 3, and I've noticed more from just the streamer aspect, which I don't watch too often or anything like that, but occasionally they do these limited time modes in Fortnite where you have like the OG sandbox, for instance. And so you're not necessarily on the same exact old school map, but it has a bit of that old school feel because you're using the original sandbox.
So I think ultimately that it's possible. And I think I'd be willing to do that as limited modes. Because, like, realistically, how often do I go back and play? And the one thing that'd be really cool about it, too, actually, yes, I can go play Ghosts or Modern Warfare 2 at any given time. But the sad part is that no one else is doing it. By doing a limited time mode and doing it sparingly, everybody will go back for that nostalgic kick for a week. or a weekend, however long you run that mode, like if you time it right, everybody will be on at the same time doing that old stuff. God, I really want Call of Duty to do this. I just want to play Modern Warfare 2 in its
one
prime.
step further. Most like unique game modes and stuff like that, and my biggest reference, of course, I think will always be like Halo is look at Fiesta, now Super Fiesta in Halo 5. Key limited time modes that are that popular stick around.
Yeah.
And so if there's enough of a community behind it and everything else, I wouldn't be surprised if there's like a, Call of Duty does like a iteration type live service game, and now all of a sudden there's a ghost type game mode.
Almost, it's like we're seeing the conception of that in the launch screen. How now you have Warzone, Cold War, Vanguard, like you have several titles on the launch screen. Just strip away the launch screen and make it your game list, your game modes.
Yep.
Man, we can't go down this rabbit hole. I'm just setting myself up for like disappointment in 5 years. But I do want to read to you basically, I'll tell you why I like Halo as an esport. And then this is a list that I have slowly compiled over the last 5 years now, of why Halo would be a perfect BR.
Okay.
The list hasn't changed much since the first iteration. But I think one of the things Halo does incredibly well, and this is Slayer, right? Halo's the only FPS game that has team deathmatch as a competitive mode. And it only works because the one thing that respawn modes or objective modes, the one thing objective modes do well is they force map rotations. They force you to do things besides just spawn trap. And the reason that Slayer works as the only TDM competitive mode is because of power-ups and power weapons. You force map rotation that way, even though it's only a killing game mode. And I think taking that approach and just blowing it up is the key behind it being a perfect battle royale. Now, I'll get your opinion on that, and then I will read the list.
So rather than my take, I have I think a good question then is I feel like with key battle royales, it needs to work in a solo environment as well. Not has to, because I think Apex kind of takes that theory out the window. But
for the most part, I agree. Yes, Apex is like the outlier.
Players want to be able to, yes, play with friends, but they also want to be able to enjoy a game by themselves sometimes. And I think that's where BR lacks a little bit. Fortnite, I think, is why it blew up so much, is because it was almost just as fun to play by yourself sometimes.
I played more solos than anything.
Exactly.
But I'm a player that in Call of Duty especially, I've always loved free for all. I love being able to, I was the best in the lobby.
Yeah.
And one of the other downfalls of Call of Duty, I think, is disbanding lobbies after every match. Like, you don't form these in-lobby rivalries or friendships like you did 5 to 10 years ago. Okay, it's cool. Someone beat me, next match, I'm gonna show him, right? I'm gonna clap back. Like, you don't get that anymore. It's just you're in the middle of talking crap or making a friend, and all of a sudden, boom, gone out of the lobby.
Yep.
Yeah, that I think has been a very big downfall in games in general, specifically Call of Duty.
So then the question, though, that I pose then is, how do you make a solo experience in a Halo BR work? Because I think that would be the biggest challenge for them.
I agree. That's a question I've not asked myself. But yeah, that's a really important question. I'm disappointed in myself for not having asked myself this, knowing I've been working on this list for so long. But it was more so like I thought of it, and then I just went into detail on it 5 years ago. I haven't been working on it actively.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're only just kind of getting back. And so that's why, it's the time to build that list now.
So here's my list. All right. Here's why I think it has such potential. One of the biggest downfalls in BRs is spawn weapons and RNG. We saw this a lot in Fortnite. Worst player gets gold scar, wins gunfight against better player that only has pistol. So just like we do in regular Halo, in casual or ranked, you have a spawn weapon. Now, what is the spawn weapon? I like BR. Maybe it's an AR. I don't know. Maybe you use a BR as a ground loot. DMR, I think past DMRs needs to be floor loot. I think Commando could maybe be a spawn weapon. Or do we just give him a pistol that is, maybe not quite as strong as like the Combat Evolved pistol, but stronger than like a Halo. I think Halo 5's pistol was
that's like exactly where perfect. My head was at.
Like, so regardless though, I think you give everybody a spawn weapon. So it's a completely balanced playing field from the start. And then from there, I think that your floor loot should be most of our traditional weapons. I think we should have the SMGs, which, by the way, what's up with SMGs and shotguns in Infinite right now? What have they done to the Bulldog?
I mean, the Bulldog's not bad. It is a learning curve gun, unfortunately, though.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Is it a minimum 2 or 3 hit kill?
Minimum 2.
Is it minimum 2? Double headshot, close range?
Yep.
Or I guess body shot, then headshot?
And not even that close range. You can aim down sights. Because I feel like it does tighten that spread.
Does it? Okay. Because I thought it was a 3 hit minimum, but I don't use it that much because it's just, that's a lie. I use it a lot in strongholds. Like if we're doing street strongholds, don't let me get back C with the shotgun. I will rack up at least 6 kills before you take me out.
I mean, you say that until you get ninja'd.
Yeah, that's true. No, I just camp next to the commando spawn, and I'll just peek out as soon as they hop the flag or the point. But again, I think floor loot, we should have SMGs, shotguns, some of the Covenant weapons like the carbine, the regular, like, mind you, I made this list during Halo 5. This was before Infinite, so some of the weapon,
totally fair.
Yeah, some of the weapon balance is going to be out of whack.
So go with it based off Halo 5.
Some of the plasma guns could be floor loot. The needler, not the Halo Infinite needler. That thing sucks.
It's broken. No, it's broken.
I think
it's too good.
Oddly enough, during the beta, I was like, okay, this is the only time I'll admit to aim assist being absolutely broken. The needler is ridiculous. But now I find like it's just not that useful.
Lead with it. You lead with it.
Maybe.
I feel like it's such a fast time to kill.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I think that's cool too. Is like I'm low level Onyx, like 1520 to 1550, but I feel like 90% of it, like I feel like I'm not playing the game right. I feel like I'm just good at FPS games. Like I'm good enough and I play the game right enough, but like I don't play it right enough to get past 1500 Onyx.
See, and for me is like I love ranked, but at the same time is I'm okay with being patient on this game, and so I haven't given it too much of my effort. I got up to Onyx and then I just stopped.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm good.
Realistically, I think I'm a diamond player because it wasn't until I started playing with friends again. Like I was chilling in Diamond 6 playing solo queuing every game.
Mm-hmm.
And like I had to recruit help. I was like, I need some people to just not be baboons on the map to get me over that last little hump. And from there, I've been able
like this.
Yeah.
They're resetting, right? Ranks?
Yeah.
Yeah. Way too many people are in Onyx.
Yeah. They're resetting it and then they're fixing the ranks so that it's actually you have to earn your place more. Yeah.
To get to Onyx.
Now, the only reason I say I think I'm actually a Diamond 6 player is because in Halo 5, I was also Diamond 5, Diamond 6 for like 3 years consistently.
I'm the player where if I play on my main.
That was only in SWAT though, so.
I'm the player that I never really went for like a champ grind or anything like that, but like I'm the kind of player where so there's the CSR, like the visual rank that you see, and then there's of course MMR.
Yeah.
And the MMR you don't get to see. So I was always the player from Halo 5, like probably year 2, 3 on, to now in Infinite where my MMR is so high that certain friends hate playing with me because it's just not fun. We're always playing against sweats and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's why it's like, even though I know that I'm only at like 15, 17 Onyx, I could climb higher if I tried for it and stuff like that. But like the game understands that I make the right decisions in the right moments and stuff like that, that like my MMR is always higher than my CFR, it feels like, because I'm playing against 1900 Onyx and stuff like that, even though I'm only at 1500.
Yeah. See, I play against anywhere from bottom Onyx to, I think the highest I've played is like 1800, like 1790 or something. But that's a little bit more rare. But yeah, I don't know. We can talk about that more actually at the end, because I do have a question for you down the road.
All right.
But there's my floor loot. Basically your standard layout of most of the Halo guns. I do have on here question mark hammer, question mark grenade launcher, not rockets, as floor loot. Like maybe we could do it. Maybe they have to be more rare, or maybe they're just not floor loot at all, because that would affect the game being truly competitive.
I mean, here's the thing. It's a trade-off. So if you have the same kind of aspect of two gun loadout, right? You taking a hammer is one less gun that you can use at range.
Yeah.
So you're committing to either the pistol, the BR, and everything else to finish your fights. Otherwise, you best be getting close enough that you're killing them with a hammer.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's why I do think like Halo Sandbox, like you're saying, kind of works for almost all guns.
Yeah. See, that's which I would of course keep the traditional 2 weapons. And then for the equipment, right? I think we can keep most of Halo's traditional equipment. You have, I don't know the actual name for it, but it was like the power drain thing. Like it would drain your shields. I think it was in Halo 3 and maybe Halo 4.
Okay.
I don't think it was in 5 though. But that, I think we can keep most of the grenades, frag, the stickies.
You could call the dynamo grenades. They are the same thing.
I guess they are.
They really are.
Yeah. I was going to ask, like, where is that equipment in Infinite? But the dynamos really are the same thing.
Yeah.
But because of their...
And they change.
They change. So it's a little bit different, but they do the same thing. Yeah, I think we can keep most of the grenades. The splinter grenade. I think one thing that would be really interesting would be teleporters.
Yes.
Like I think they should be in a BR, because it adds another element of mental to it on both offense and defense. Like you have to not only know where you're putting this and remember where you put it, but you also have to be aware that somebody else could also have one nearby. Like you're never safe. I don't know. I think teleporters should stay. And now for the power weapons and power-ups, and I think this is the biggest thing. I think that you should have your traditional power weapons. You should have your sniper, your rocket, your sword. I like the Spartan laser more than the what's it called in this game? The skewer.
Oh, the skewer. Okay,
Yeah.
At first I thought you were talking about the cinder shot.
No. Again, Halo 5 list, but Spartan laser,
Yeah.
like I think we keep those. I think camo and overshields should be power-ups that you find throughout the map, not just random floor loot. Like you would basically find it in chests, essentially.
Yeah.
Let's see what else I have on here. Speed boost and damage buff. I don't know if these are things I made up or if these are actually
No,
from
those
past
are from
Halos.
Halo 5.
I'm pretty sure those are from older Halos. And then the interesting part here, I have in parentheses, like, should these power-ups and power weapons be on timers like in multiplayer? Should you basically start using them as soon as you pick them up, like you run through the overshield and now you have overshield? Or should they be pickup items like we have in Infinite, where you actually carry it around and they go on upon activation?
So I like the Infinite aspect that you can kind of activate it whenever, and then you have that limited time to use it strategically.
Yeah.
So
Which now that
I
Infinite has
love,
done that, I agree.
yeah. I
Um,
love the deteriorating aspect of Overshield. I think that's a unique part of that ability. So imagine you hold Overshield, you get into a clutch fight, that fight doesn't transpire, and now all of a sudden, 30 seconds later, you don't have that Overshield anyway.
yeah.
Like it's not guaranteed to come into effect just because you hold on to it.
Yeah.
It's almost like a Bloodhound ult
And yeah,
in
it's
Apex.
like you save it, you save it, you save it, it's still useless.
Yep.
Or you
But it's
use
a
it early,
deterrent sometimes.
but it made no difference.
Yeah, and
Um,
sometimes it's just a deterrent rather than a fight
yeah,
advantage.
yeah. And then on that, I think what would be really cool, obviously the map would be made up of, older fan favorite Halo maps and stuff like that, plus some aspects of just new map stuff. But I think it'd be really cool if they basically made similar to how Apex has like its high loot tier areas or whatever. Like you basically
Yep.
get these hot zones which have increased likelihood of the power ups and power weapons. So then when dropping in, you basically have to decide, okay, do I go into the hot zone where I know it might be really high demand and a bunch of people are there? Or do I play it safe and play more of a long-term game? Or maybe, maybe play in between and you try to play somewhat safe and conservative, but close enough that you can maybe third party and steal these power ups and power weapons. I think that would be a cool way to basically initiate the game. And then also, if the power ups and power weapons are on timers, extended timers versus multiplayer, it would be a cool way to also force rotations in a battle royale outside of just the zone, forcing those rotations. Yes, the zone is going to force you to change the map a little bit, but imagine if your plan has to change because rockets might be coming up in 2 minutes over in this other area.
Yep.
Like, I think it creates this really cool dynamic of playing it safe or high risk, high reward.
So that's what I was going to say is I think it would be better probably not off drop for those kind of things to be in the game. And then you have like, okay, so look at your like Bulldog and stuff like that, your tier 2 power weapons, right?
Yeah.
You can only have one on the map at a time. Those would drop earlier in the game, maybe a couple minutes into the game, your round one, your circle one, or whatever you want to call it. And those are things that you would fight for. So you would have like, look at Halo 5 where they had tiered power-ups as well. You could almost have tiered power-ups in this BR where Overshield 1 drops Ring 1 and it lasts maybe 30 seconds. So it's good for
versus
like one fight.
Ring 4 or something.
Has like an Overshield 3 that lasts a minute and a half and has that extra layer of Overshield.
Yeah.
Something like that. Of course, balancing would have to be, in the works. But like those drops that you're talking about are announced in the battlefield. Okay, this, and on the countdown timer almost. Like you have to fight for it. You have to fight for the area, earn the area, and then you get your drop.
What's cool too is actually if you do take, say tiered power ups, it does make sense because by late game everybody's going to be pretty stacked, theoretically. But one of the things you see a lot in battle royales is like who always comes out on top? The third team. The third team in almost always wins the fight. But what if that third team in comes in and you still have 45 seconds on your overshield?
Yep.
Like, well, now your third party ain't working out so well. It's a much more balanced fight than you thought you were getting into. So I think that's, again, another reason why Halo could do so well as a battle royale. And on top of that, with the power-ups and power weapons, I think just like multiplayer and ranked, like they should be limited ammo. You shouldn't be able to, maybe you get lucky, you grab rockets or a sniper on ring 2. That shouldn't carry you for the next 15 minutes. That should not carry you all the way to a dub, something that happened in ring 2. Now you can replenish the ammo. Maybe someone else got it and they didn't use it. Or maybe it's like the Magnum ammo in PUBG where you can only get it from other supply drops.
Yeah.
Like ultimately, I think the power-ups, or more so the power weapons, they have a very finely tuned and balanced ammo limit.
So I think that almost everything would need a finite ammo and everything else outside of your starting weapon. If
Basically, your
whatever
spawn
the
weapon.
starting weapon should
Yeah.
be infinite ammo, it really shouldn't matter how many shots you're wasting. It's basically your base gun, and then from there, the higher the tier, the less ammo you got. So
Yeah.
like,
Either infinite ammo or just so readily available that like you almost would never run out anyways.
yeah. So the idea I think behind infinite ammo is it actually is a unique way of having some players keep that gun.
Yeah.
So think about it. If you're limiting it to two guns, what's probably the first thing you're going to try to do? Drop that starting weapon and get two other guns,
Yeah.
right?
Or do you make the choice
Whereas
of keeping a maybe slightly worse weapon that never runs out of ammo?
exactly. Whereas, yeah, if you have that infinite ammo, there that in itself is a reason to kind of keep it. You're never going to be caught in an area where like, oh, I might not have ammo for this.
Yeah. And I think on top of that too, like that also makes you rethink the approach towards the power weapons. Like, well, do you keep your base gun and hope to grab a power weapon as your second? Or do you just get like a tier 2 gun as your second? Do you keep two tier 2 guns and try to get like a power weapon later on? Like, ultimately, it's a more technically sound battle royale than what we've had so far, which for me, my two, I think, most competitive battle royales with the least amount of RNG involved are PUBG and Apex. Apex, because I think it is hands down the most difficult and most complicated. There's just so much that goes on, especially if you watch at the pro level. And then PUBG, because the weapons all have pretty much the same time to kill.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty much just weapon preference. There's only a few that actually make a significant impact.
But that in itself is a unique tool of like the developer. If they can make it where certain guns maybe feel better, but they all do have similar time to kills, and you're playing based off of your preference, that's a good balance of a sandbox.
Yeah. That's one of the things I think Infinity Ward does so well in their pub games. I think it's one of the reasons they're so enjoyable. Is like the time to kill is so low that you can really just use any gun you want.
Yeah.
Now the downside of that, of course, is higher time to kill games increase the skill gap. And then on vehicles, I definitely have mixed feelings. This is my approach on all games. I never know how I feel about vehicles. I think most games, vehicles can be pretty broken. So let's see what I have here. Vehicles create the need for anti-vehicle explosives, which eventually get used as anti-personnel and are annoying, right? So RPGs, those are something that should be used against vehicles. But what happens is people start using those against people. I think the only way you can do that is if you're going to have vehicles, then your anti-vehicle weapons need to do very limited player damage.
So if you're talking
or just leave them out entirely, both vehicles and like I could see that one playing out either way. I lean towards leave them out entirely because I hate vehicles anyways.
Forget like if you love or hate vehicles. So think of like quote this BR that we built like just in this conversation where you're having a two gun inventory. You have ability or power up in that sense. You don't really have room for vehicles that are balanced with that.
Yeah.
Like you said, you kind of need anti-vehicle guns then, and now you're trading off one of your two guns for an anti-vehicle gun. And that kind of furthers
and depending on how many
goal.
vehicles there are on the map, like,
yeah,
is it worth it to keep an RPG on you?
And I think that PUBG is probably one of the only games that has actually, and I don't know how it is now, I haven't watched it since early days of PUBG, is balance those vehicles in the game where it was easy enough to destroy them with just the regular guns and stuff like that, that it wasn't really a factor to have a gun other than rotation. They weren't offensive.
I think that's the sweet spot with vehicles
else.
Is they should literally serve to get you from A to B.
So, like, if you did have vehicles, it would be the extent of a mongoose, not even a
Yeah.
gun goose, no offensive ability. If you occasionally get a splatter, good for you. You deserve that. You're not getting a splatter with that little tricycle mongoose.
Yeah. See, that I think I'm fine with. And then even then making sure that the health on them isn't too high. Just finding that
Correct.
sweet spot where people can't basically just camp in it and drive around in circles, as
They
we
have
saw
to
in PUBG from
be
time to time.
they have to be kind of like a paper mache.
Yeah. And then
But you also can't have it where then if the vehicles are destroyed, it kind of damages the player. So like if you are making them paper mache, that's fine, but then it just needs to basically poof the vehicle is really gone. It doesn't have any
yeah,
long
like
lasting negative effect on the player in a fight.
yeah, like maybe it does some damage that you maybe just
Yeah.
heal from.
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as like meds go, I think eliminate them.
Yep.
I think just keep normal regen. Like
Yep. Maybe extend times and stuff like that. But
I
yes.
think like every battle royale has some form of like med kits or bandages. Like, can we see some game that just says we're gonna do regular regen? And like, granted, I guess Warzone like does have regen and then also has the shields or your plates. I haven't played Warzone in a while. I ultimately despise it. I think it's the worst battle royale.
Halo would thrive in the inverse of Warzone.
Yeah.
I think that you take the ODST approach, like of your shields recharging and your health doesn't, and you would need health packs. But those health packs aren't stuff that goes in your inventory or anything else. They're just you need to find them and hit them like that ODST type style.
Like that. Ultimately, I think. Yeah. See, this is why I was like, you know what? I've been wanting to make this video on why why it would be such a good battle royale. This list was first made March 10th of 2021, but the concept and the actual like initial list I mentioned first in my very first podcast in 2017, talking about Fortnite.
There you
go. I just haven't found a way to make this into a video, and now I have. So thank you.
There you go.
And you approach the game in a similar way. Like you're all mental, like because my biggest problem with most battle royales is like there's just so much RNG that goes into it. Even the circle rotation, which is where I think putting power weapons and stuff on a timer. Like, yeah, it's still random where the circle goes, but now your decision making is less random. It's more, it's more intended. There's a purpose behind that decision, and I think it caters to a lot of players. Like, it caters to new players that do want to approach the game very safely and slowly, and it caters to your really good players that want to go in for those hot zones and try to, take out a few teams and walk out with the best loot. Like,
part of what Halo does well too is a lot of times the power-ups and stuff like that are not in strong positions on the map. They're in vulnerable
yes, they
positions.
put you in very exposed positions.
So if you take that concept with a battle royale and you make that they're never in the power positions, now you have to make that decision, like you're saying, of are you going for the power up or the power position?
Yeah. That is something that it's in the, like, I don't think of it actively, but I know Halo does do that on purpose, and they've done it really well. It's always putting those power-ups in highly exposed areas. Like, maybe you pick them up, but maybe you die before you can use them.
Yep.
And now it's just a scramble again. And then on top of that, of course, the circle would have to be the flood. Like
that would be cool.
Like what? That was like when I first even started thinking about this. That was the first thing that was the most obvious. Like, what else would it be?
Yeah, and it would be such like a more fear factor than any other storm.
Yeah.
Like the one thing that Halo always had going for it is like the flood was terrifying. They were cute individually, but it was so overwhelming that it could do nothing but chill you to the core. And like having just a wave of flood coming at you, and imagine like flood pods every once in a while, like the explosive flood pods. Like they just they drop
and if you do that too, like another problem we see in battle royales is people just kind of hugging the corners of the zone and coming in really slowly. Well, like imagine if you implemented basically like random splash damage to the zone.
Yeah.
Or something to keep people from just hugging it and camping.
It doesn't need to be as static.
Yeah. I don't know. Overall, I think still Halo has the ultimate potential for being a true battle royale esport. Now, the concern obviously is if they do that, would they do what Call of Duty has done, and now that's all anybody cares about is Warzone?
I don't think that's controllable.
Also, one thing, this is the number one reason I hate Warzone. Like, in this Halo, it's one and done. You die, you're done. You maybe get rezzed one time. But, like, if you're knocked, you can get rezzed. But if you die, you're done. The number one reason I hate Warzone is it has completely eliminated punishment for playing stupid. You have so many opportunities to be brought back to the game. You have the gulag, which I think is really cool by itself. But if you lose your gulag, all it takes is your team to buy you back, or a jailbreak to happen, or your team to buy you back, or your team to buy you back again, or your team to buy you back yet again. Like, how have we taken this battle royale, which in its concept was a massive free-for-all last man standing, and somehow you can go like 20 and 10. Like,
I think you throw it back to the OG blow up one of Fortnite. I think they do it best where there are like rare spots on the map that you can revive, not as frequent as Apex.
I would say Apex came up with the concept, Fortnite executed it better.
And they make it difficult to do. So like think of the vans, the respawn vans without building involved. It takes a while to get back. You need to be able to control the area very well in order to get that back. So imagine like not necessarily, I guess almost like a teleporter or something like that you need to like quote rebuild a teleporter in order to get your Spartan back in.
Yeah. But I think that's a really key part of the Battle Royale experience right now is how they handle respawns and revives.
It needs to be difficult.
It needs to be, like you need to be, something you see in Warzone a lot is like someone will just go run off to 1v4 because if they die, you'll buy me back.
Yep.
Like there's zero punishment for playing the game wrong. And as a Call of Duty player, like in the same way that you understand Halo really well, when they first introduced Stim Shot, I loved it. I loved the concept of Stim Shot. It added another thing you had to think about on engaging your fights. Ultimately, what it's caused is everybody to just ego chow, and you can use it so regularly that now when you peek a guy that's beaming you down with an AR, you no longer get punished for making a stupid peek. You just go back and cover, Stim Shot, and then rush them anyways. Like, I loved the concept at first. After experiencing it firsthand, I'm like, it is the single thing in recent COD that has ruined the gameplay experience for me.
Again, it's like it's something that I think it doubles back to where we started with a lot of these conversations of things can't be forced.
Yeah.
You know, like it needs to feel right, and certain things like that where you're saying like it was a cool concept that went a little too far and now it feels forced where everybody's just using it.
Yeah. And there needs to be in like, I mean, even if you take my example and throw it out the window of like, oh, it's not forcing people to play stupid. Well, why is it the number one piece of equipment that everybody has on their class? Like that tells you there's a balancing issue. If nobody is choosing to use a different piece of equipment over this, you have a balancing issue.
Balance has to be your number one priority.
Yeah.
Especially in a battle royale where there's enough RNG involved.
And I think you 100 players, that's it. I think 100's the sweet spot.
It depends on the size of the map.
Yeah.
I think 100 at most. I do like Apex's 60. So like Apex is a little bit smaller maps and that 60 feels right. So it really does depend the size of the map.
Yeah. I think with the size of the map and the way that Apex plays with the abilities and stuff, they have a really good sweet spot on pacing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think right now Apex is the best battle royale. I think it's been the best battle royale since it came out. Like Warzone is super fun in its pacing because you can have fights in a matter of seconds if you want them. But I think it's also the worst battle royale because the respawns being the number one thing. What else? What were we saying right before that? Respawns balancing. Oh yeah, like with lives, right? Like 100.
Mm-hmm.
The other problem with there being so many respawns is you get super late in the game and there's still 50 people left.
Yeah.
Like you should never, when you get to that last circle, you should have like 5 to 6 squads left tops, not 20 squads.
I think Warzone itself is a bad example though, as well, because like
I think it's a really good example of how to do something bad.
Yes, because because think about it, the top entertainment value of Warzone is not the win, correct?
Correct. It's the high kill count. Yeah, which again defeats the purpose of
a battle royale, which is to survive to the end,
to be the best team.
So like, I think if your priority is not the victory, then that in itself is saying that there's something wrong with your balancing.
Yeah. And I think on that too, like I think the thing that scares me the most is Call of Duty is still one of the biggest games out there. And they have a lot of influence on other developers and how they go about things, right? Fortnite blew up to be one of the biggest games of all time. And every single game for the most part has some version of a battle pass now.
Yeah.
The amount of influence that a game of that caliber has over the industry, like as much as Warzone sucks, it makes the most money.
See, it does, but I
like
think
I'm scared of how other developers look at that, and do they make the right decision to leave money on the table and make a better product, or do they just go after the cash grab, which is easy?
So I think that part it ties, both are kind of tied together, where developers are still going to look at the why of the success. And so the battle pass was so successful because you basically took the concept of, instead of just buying things, you purchased a pass that you had to earn, and it was a lot of things at a discount, but not just given to you.
Yeah. And they came out at basically the peak of frustration with supply drops. Like the battle pass basically was supply drops done not shittily.
Yeah. And so when you take a concept that was already being like struggling with, like you were saying, supply drops, and now you turn it into something that people love, that's where the success blows up. I don't think it's necessarily the influence, just kind of shows the reach. And so like Fortnite with the battle pass, it was a shown proven success because of their reach. They had millions and millions of players. They had a huge sample size for other developers to look at and say, okay, this is why this works. On the reverse side of that, I think nobody's really looking at Warzone and going like, oh, we need a lot more respawns. You know what I mean? Because they understand that the concept of Battle Royale is about the victory first. The victory should be the most satisfying moment, not, oh, I dropped 60.
Yeah. It's like you dropped 60 at the cost of dying 6 times, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's a fear of that kind of, because like you said, they have a huge influence as well. But developers are always going to look at the why things are successful, not just the fact that they are successful.
And I think something that most developers do well is you want to take from other studios, you want to take their successes, but you also can't do it in a way where it's obvious. Like you have to still stay true to your core audience or to your values as a company or as a developer. Some games have done a really bad job of this, but they've been punished for it. Their core consumer base will basically shut down their whole studio because of the amount of hate they're getting.
Halo 4.
Prime example. Like, I think that we are at a time and place where a lot of developers, a lot of studios have learned pretty much to not piss off their core base. I think EA pioneered that for everybody. They said, "Hey, this is what happens when you do a bad job," and EA has done a pretty decent job coming back from that. You know, they're making a lot of progress. It's definitely still not perfect. I think Activision has currently taken the title of just being a terrible publisher. And I hope with the Microsoft thing, they can help Activision heal and get back on the right track, basically.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I think we're just about done here. We've been going for hour 45 almost, making this one of the longest episodes. I do want to ask one last thing. So you said when I asked if you could be involved in any way, you said if you could do anything in esports, you would do coaching. I've been thinking about what kind of gaming content I want to make. I've been starting that with, streamer tips and stuff like that. But I have thought about making content that is more kind of coaching. I don't know what kind of content you make, but you could always do something like that, or we could do something, a collaboration video or something if you're interested.
That would be cool.
One thing that I think would be really cool, I watched Lucid break down one of his friends' gameplays or something. It'd be cool if you broke down my shitty gameplay.
See, I played with you in the beta, and I don't think that you saying shitty gameplay is as bad as you think it is. Because like you said, you at least have enough of the core FPS experience. What you lack is probably the Halo meta and mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but seeing that, like just seeing, especially in ranked, because obviously the beta is one thing. But ranked, like seeing, basically having you point out like, okay, you did this completely wrong. This was a terrible decision. Or, here, and I think even just watching like that one Lucid video, like I definitely approached the game significantly different now. So that would be cool. But the end of every episode, I do basically give people a Hot Ones moment to tell anyone listening or watching where to follow you or what kind of stuff you do. If you do any content, basically shout yourself out, do whatever you want before we close this sucker out.
All right. So most active social media is definitely Twitter. I'm SportyKid_2 on Twitter. As far as content goes, all I pretty much do is Twitch. I will stream Sea of Thieves and Halo right now with a little bit of Apex. My buddies always try to get me back into that one. I am SportyKid, just a straight SportyKid on Twitch. I stream most Wednesdays, and I've been trying to get consistent on Saturdays. And I feel like as I get my branding a little bit better recently here, that'll be a lot more consistent.
All right. So. One other thing too, we were supposed to talk about like health and fitness, but we may have to save that for another one. Don't want this episode going too long. But thank you, everybody. If you guys are still watching, if you guys are listening still, of course, make sure to like and subscribe if you're watching over on YouTube. Make sure you guys go follow SportyKid. Definitely been a pleasure having him on here. One of my favorite episodes so far. So thank you. Thank you for joining me. And I'll see you guys in a couple weeks on the next one. I'm out.